Hawaii's environment and natural resources really drives a lot of our economy. It sustains the tourism industry, and I just think it's appropriate that we start, as we roll out the position papers of the IGE campaign, that we start with these three areas. It's really about energy, sustainability, agriculture, and protecting the natural environment. It's appalling to me that we don't have a chair of the Public Utilities Commission. We all know how important the Public Utilities Commission is in exercising and energizing the clean energy policy. I would take action to implement the clean energy rules as soon as possible. I'm not certain what the hang-up is with the administration, but it's a key policy component. Each community, each island should be sustainable in and of themselves. They need to develop the renewable energy policies that make sense for their communities. We ought to have PV on every home. We ought to be aggressive about grid modernization, about improving the network. I receive so many concerns from our community members that they want to make the investment to put PV on their homes and they're being told that they couldn't. We need to make an aggressive advance to allow for renewable energy in every sector that we can. And it really is about trying to put more renewable energy onto the grid. The legislature adopted and put in place the most aggressive clean energy policy across the country. And it's time for action. It's time for leadership from the executive to move the agenda forward. And clearly, the Public Utilities Commission would be a very, very important one. Finding someone to lead that organization. There is a heavy load and agenda that is before the commission, looking at grid modernization. Legislature has been encouraging them to modernize the grid and make arrangements so that the consumer can put PV on his roof if he wants to. It shouldn't be tied up just because a community is oversaturated. We want the commission to take aggressive action to ensure that when our community wants to make an investment to generate their own energy, that they can do it. Most importantly, we've been talking about food sustainability and being able to produce more of the food that we eat. We import 92% of the food that we eat. We need to make a goal to produce 20%, doubling the current food production. And that really is changing the Department of Agriculture to support more food production, to put more land into food production for our communities. But more important than that, the Department of Agriculture has to support all agriculture. It's unfortunate that we have less agricultural land in production than there was 10 years ago, and we need to reverse that trend. It's unfortunate that the current governor has paved over more than 2,000 acres of the lands used for production of food that our communities eat. It's about examining the land use plans and updating it. The land use plans haven't been updated for more than 20 years. We need to identify which lands are prime ag lands, and protect it for the long term. We have talked about food sustainability and about being able to produce more of the food we eat. And we're still at the same point. More than 92% of the food consumed in Hawaii is imported from out of state. We need to make an aggressive effort to make lands available for the food producers. There's less land available. Governor has reclassified 2,000 acres of prime agricultural land and taking it out of production. That's going backwards. It's about making more lands available and committing to, I believe we should have 20% of the food that we eat grown here locally, and that's a 10-year goal. But we can only do it if we make lands available to the farmers and really work with them to increase both food production. In the area of agriculture, we have a commitment and a purpose of ensuring that our communities are safe from pesticide use. So it's about regulating and ensuring that the current regulations are complied with, that our water is clean, and that we are not putting the health of our communities at risk. As part of that, it really is about regulating and doing a better job of managing pesticides. I believe that it is a core function of state government to ensure the health and well-being of our communities. We need to regulate pesticides and keep it away from children and those facilities that are susceptible to pesticide drift. It is a core function of state government. to ensure the health and safety, to ensure that the water is clean, that our communities are not contaminated by pesticides. And we just need to do a better job in advancing that cause. This past year, the legislature took the lead to establish the Interagency Sea Level Rise Committee, because we're concerned that nothing is happening in planning for sea level rise. We need to review all policies, procedures, all rules and regulations in terms of making changes to plan for sea level rise. Setbacks might need to be bigger. The whole land use and permitting questions really have to be addressed in the perspective of what's happening with global warming and sea level rise, because we believe that we need to evaluate all of the state functions and see what changes are required to ensure that we don't continue the policies of the past. We need to prepare for sea level change. We need to be aggressive in identifying what those impacts are and start changing the regulatory and permitting process to ensure that we're not building buildings where we shouldn't be. We need to be more aggressive with invasive species. We've read in the paper more and more about the rhinoceros coconut beetle, the little red fire ants, coqui frog spreading to Oahu and other islands. We need to be aggressive about the invasive species. This legislature, we appropriated more state funds than have ever been appropriated for invasive species, just under $6 million. The legislature, I believe that the governor needs to lead in this area. We need to be proactive. We need to stop the shipment, do better inspections to stop the spread of invasive species once they're here, and then really develop a program to eradicate those before they get established. It does take time for the state to expend money, and we clearly could start all of the processes required to begin to release the fund. And I think that those things we could start immediately. You know, the funds become available in July 1st. The governor can choose to sign the bill immediately, or he can choose to wait. So I would strongly encourage him to sign it right away. We did appropriate additional funds for inspectors, and we're trying to do a better job both within the shipping inter-island as well as incoming containers from the mainland in trying to identify and inspect and ensure that we're not importing more invasive species. We've seen such a tremendous increase in the invasive species and identifying them, and we really need to get aggressive in taking action.